Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. So in case you haven't heard, the real estate world has recently been flipped on its head. There has been a huge lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors that is challenging how buyers agents get paid, and it has left a lot of people confused. So, short version, a court recently ruled that the current structure of buyers agents commissions was illegal and needed to be changed. There's so much misinformation out there and false news that we are going to spend our next couple of videos addressing some of the changes and how it is going to affect our buyers and our sellers. Hi everyone, I'm Katie Evans, owner and lead agent of the Living 48 real estate team here in Arizona, and I want to thank you so much for watching this video today. We are going to do a series of 2 videos that is going to be addressing the NAR, National Association of Realtors Settlement, and Realtors Commissions, and it's going to be very, very important for everyone to understand what is going on. So, I have purposefully not entered into this discussion until the settlement that was proposed was approved by the courts, and we had reasonable expectations that there were going to be changes made to how we do business in real estate. I did not want to jump in ahead of time and contribute to that misinformation and the confusion that is already out there in the marketplace. But the settlement has now been approved by the courts, and we are almost 100% assured that there will be changes made to how we conduct real estate business here in the United States. All right. I also want to say before we get going too far that these changes are anticipated to be implemented mid-August of 2024. And until that time, nothing has changed. Everything will continue to go on as it has for decades now, and nothing has changed in how the compensation is being offered at this point. Now, are we going to see sellers and buyers testing the waters and trying things out? Absolutely, we always do. However, we are here to help navigate all the changes and all the strangeness out there for both our buyers and our sellers at this time. All right. In today's video, I am going to be specifically addressing the sellers and how this is going to be affecting you. This is big stuff for you guys. So if you're a buyer, I would very, very much encourage you to pay attention to this video as well. This is going to give you some very, very valuable insights on the discussions that are happening on the listing side, on the seller side, and will allow you to better understand how your buyer's agent is actually negotiating for you in the future. So yeah, let's jump right in. Okay, so first of all, I want to just sort of address a couple of questions that I have already been hearing from my clients out there in the marketplace. And then we're going to jump in and talk about how the settlement, the changes are really going to work, and specifically to the sellers today, how that's going to affect you. So you may have already heard, I have heard already these questions, and you might have heard similar questions, but here's just a couple of examples of the questions that I've been hearing. So one of my clients said, hey, I've heard, Katie, that I no longer have to pay a buyer's agent commission anymore when selling my house. Is that true? And then from one of my buyers, I heard all commissions were going to a flat rate. Is that true? So the short answer is that all commissions are negotiable. They have always been negotiable, and they will always be negotiable. The changes that are coming into play are really around transparency and how those commissions or those professional fees are paid. And part of the problem from this lawsuit was that the buyers and the sellers truly did not understand how their agents got paid and compensated and where all that came from. Flat fee brokers, discount brokers, they have always been around. They will always be around. And I don't anticipate that they're going away, nor will they become the norm. We will always have many, many different ways to do real estate. All right. Before we launch in, I want to give you a quick little history lesson on the National Association of Realtors. So the original National Association of Real Estate Exchanges, which then became the National Association of Real Estate Boards, and then finally became the National Association of Realtors that you know now, or NAR, was actually founded in 1908, and their original objective was to adopt a uniform method of doing business in real estate. After about 5 years, the group adopted what were known as the rules of conduct, And those rules of conduct have been a living and evolving document over the decades. Now, back in 1924, a preamble was added. Oh, this all sounds very much like history, doesn't it? A preamble was added, and among the additions to that was an obligation to the members to share professional knowledge and maintain a spirit of cooperation. So it has always been the intention of the members of what is now known as the National Association of Realtors, or NAR, to cooperate with each other in order to help our clients obtain the best terms and conditions in the process of selling or buying real estate. And the purpose of the upcoming changes is to add more transparency to our clients' understanding of the costs and the professional fees associated with the real estate transaction. Let's get back to the conversation about how your agent gets paid. So there really are, how your buyer's agent really gets paid. Listing agent, seller's agent, that is all negotiated with the listing of the property. But the buyer's agent, how do they get paid? So there's really three ways that a buyer agent can get paid their professional fee, AKA their commission, their compensation, whatever you want to call it, under the new rules that are going to be implemented mid-August, okay? The first is going to feel very similar to how it has been. The first is that the seller can assist the buyer in the form of a seller concession to help the buyer pay for their own buyer agent professional fee. Going to feel very, very similar, okay? The second way is that the buyer can pay out of their own funds, bank accounts, however, 100% of their own agent's professional fee, okay? That's totally different than it has ever been before. And there will be loan programs that are going to have to adjust their standards and rules in order to make that even a possible reality for the buyer. For some government-backed loans, up until recently, that has been not allowed, okay? Or there is the third way, which is some combination of number 1 and 2. However, the seller is going to contribute a little bit, the buyer is going to bring some to the table. There's going to be that kind of stuff. So one of the key changes that's going to be mandated is that the buyer's agent's professional fee will need to be negotiated and agreed to in the form of a formal agreement, AKA a buyer-broker's employment agreement, before the agent is ever allowed to show houses that are listed on the MLS, okay? In the past, and we've all been known to do this, in the past, agents have chosen to show properties that were listed in the MLS without having a formal agreement with their buyer in the hopes that it would help establish their value as an agent, knowing that there would be some sort of compensation offered from the seller's agent if they could get the buyer to the finish line, okay? That is not going to be the case anymore. Sellers' agents are no longer going to be the ones negotiating the buyer's agent professional fee or commission amount. That is now going to be an agreement between the buyer and their agent prior to, again, viewing any properties that are listed in the MLS in order to ensure that the buyer's agent gets paid. So why would a seller want to contribute towards the buyer's ability to pay for their agent's professional fees? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. And in my humble opinion, it is still going to be a good idea to, as the seller, plan on contributing towards the buyer's concessions in order for them to help pay their agent's professional fees. And I'm going to share with you very quickly the top 3 reasons why I think that that is still going to be a good idea. So number 1, helping you be competitive in the current marketplace. So just like when I come to your property and I do a listing consultation and we look at all the comparative properties, all of your competition out there in the marketplace, the buyers are now going to, in addition to price and location and all that kind of stuff, they're now going to be looking at that compensation piece in order to determine which listings that they are interested in going to see. So they are going to be more open to seeing the properties that are helping them by giving seller concessions to help them pay for their agent's professional fees. So remember, historically, the buyers have depended on the sellers rolling that payment of commissions for all the agents into the seller side of the closing cost to be paid out of the seller proceeds. That has historically been how it has been here in the United States since the early 1900s. And since the 1970s, we have disclosed that amount in the MLS to provide as much transparency as possible. That is going to become illegal according to the rules that are going to be coming down. And so it's going to have that effect to allow sellers to make that choice on if they want to pay any kind of concession to help their buyer make it to the finish line or not. Now, for the buyers, having that additional liquid money in addition to their down payment, their closing costs, their loan fees, their moving expenses, for many buyers, that's just not really a viable option. And so by not being willing to cooperate and help them with their professional fees on their side, there are going to be many buyers who once they are employed, or many buyer agents who once they are employed by their buyers in the form of a formal agreement, are going to instruct that buyer's agent to only show them the houses where the seller is willing to offer that compensation for them to use towards their agent professional fees. So then they will be instructing their agent not to show them your property, thus limiting the number of potential buyers for your property and potentially creating longer days on market, less competition, and ultimately a lower sales price and net proceeds for you, the seller. That is number one reason why I think it is still in your best interest to consider offering some sort of a seller concession for the buyer to help compensate their agent. Number two, setting your cooperative compensation concession up front is going to limit rate negotiations later on. All right, so it's going to be in your best interest as a seller to kind of get in front of this, get ahead of it. And it's going to create less friction for your potential buyers in the purchase and offers for your property. So by letting buyers know that yes, you are willing to offer some sort of buyer concession and you have already budgeted for this amount of the buyer concession into your estimated net sheet, they can then make an informed decision on your property prior to seeing it, thus helping you attract the right buyer with the right offer to net you the most potential money on the sale of your property. A big advocate for that. And I'm going to be recommending to all of my sellers that we are super upfront in our communications with the buyer and their agents in what we are going to be negotiating as far as those concessions and compensation goes. So that is going to help us get the best offers for you right up front and make this as ungritty as possible. All right, number three, why would the seller want to offer these concessions to the buyer? Offering no concessions to potential buyers actually comes with some really, really, really big risks. Let me try and explain that to you. So you might think that it makes the most sense to offer zero concessions for the buyer's agent fees upfront simply and negotiate like a lower rate at closing. However, I really don't think that this is how it's going to play out in reality and in real practice. Just because you list your home and offer 0% upfront does not mean you're not going to pay any buyer commissions. Okay. Most buyers are simply going to either A, ignore your home and instruct their agent not to show it to you all, thus decreasing the potential buyers of your property, or, and see, go back to point number one if I didn't explain that well enough, or they're simply going to attempt to negotiate those fees in the purchase offer at potentially a higher rate than you would have offered and maybe even both parties would have agreed to. So if you had offered a 3% or a 2.5% upfront, their agent would have said, yeah, that's great, let's go for it. And now, because you didn't, they're trying to negotiate 3.5% for their buyer's agent professional fees. All right. So instead of all this, it means that you're going to have to negotiate the rate in counter offers going back and forth, which can lead to long drawn out negotiations, loss of your potential buyer, and potentially paying more than you might otherwise have done. All right, there is a secondary risk, maybe even a bigger risk to offering no buyer concessions for the buyer agent fees. And that is the creation of what is called an unrepresented buyer. Okay. These are the buyers that have no guidance from someone who has experience with contracts, timelines, negotiation points, needed contract documents, all that kind of stuff throughout the escrow. This lack of guidance and assistance, best case, will save the buyer a little bit of money, but will more likely cause headache, heartache, as the timelines are not met, and your risk is exponentially increased for misunderstandings, lawsuits, missed timelines, not closing on time, all those kind of things. So buyers who come to you unrepresented are typically expecting perks, some sort of perks, thinking that they are saving all parties money and that those savings should then be passed along to them. It has been my experience that those savings typically translate into costs that no one expected, and all parties would have been much, much better served having had their appropriate representation. Okay, so I know that this has been kind of a longer conversation. It might have been a little or a lot confusing to you. So I want to encourage you to please reach out to me. Let's continue this conversation offline. And if you have any questions around this or any other things that you've heard in regards to the lawsuit, the settlement, negotiations around commissions, how that is all going to work out, I really, really would like to further this conversation, okay? Now, my team and I have always and will continue to offer flexible commission structures so that you can pay for your representation no matter what your budget is. We're going to work with you on that. And so please feel assured that that is something that we have always and will continue to do for our clients. Now, the next video in this two-part series is going to come out in the next couple of weeks, and I would really, really encourage you to watch that video and then take both of these videos and share them with everyone you know, specifically anyone you know who is looking to buy or sell real estate here in the next little while. They are going to need this information. It is going to be very, very important that we get the word out about this as quickly as possible. So I want to thank you in advance for helping me share this information and get this important conversation started with all of our clients out there. And I look forward to chatting with you here in the very near future. Thank you again for watching this video, and we'll catch you on our next one.